Hey everybody, how you doing? I hope everybody's well. I'd like to welcome everybody back to another chapter of You're Not Alone. I'm Sid Page and I'm an addict. I have a very good friend with me here today in the room. His name is Jeremy, and I've known him in and out of the rooms and been roommates. And I'm going to introduce you. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm good, doing good. About 82 days clean today, so
82 days clean.
actually 83. I got 7 more
Okay.
days and I'll be my 90. So it's been a different, I've hit that mark probably 3 times in my lifetime.
All
So
right.
um, I'm approaching my longest clean time,
Okay.
which is just shy of 6 months. So,
All right.
but I'm excited about it. So
So it's a grand total so far of 6 months of being clean time. But here in the program, you're reaching your 90 days.
yeah, getting ready to hit my 90 and haven't really decided when I'm going to do that, what meeting or anything, but
Right,
I usually do it at my home group meeting, but I've been thinking about doing that at a different meeting. I try not to think too far ahead.
right, right.
7 days is a long ways off.
It can be, yeah.
But things are going fast and going good, and I'm getting ready to do some things to slow the
Mm-hmm.
process down a little bit more. So
Okay.
I'm great, man. I'm really great,
Well,
and
you look great.
I'm
You
excited about life, and
good?
I'm blessed to be here at the Bethel House, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
All right. You know, I asked you to come on here to tell us a little bit about your recovery and about your addictions because we were in a meeting not long ago, and you had shared that your first experience with anything mind altering happened at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
You want to start us out with that?
Yeah, I started. Well, I started drinking when I was, you know, 10,
Okay, 10.
and I used to go babysit my cousins, and my favorite uncle was he's an addict, and
Okay,
so when I'd go up there and babysit and stuff, I'd get to drink and smoke pot and smoke cigarettes, and and I'm from a little country town, so
mm-hmm.
mainly about the only thing to really do is drink and be drugged. So
Okay. Kind of boring, not much.
yeah, I
Just
mean, I grew up, I was very athletic. And I grew up with my parents, and,
mm-hmm.
my dad was, he was abusive.
Okay.
So we had I don't really want to say a bad childhood, but, I held her, and I probably still do a little bit, but I'm working a step. So
Sure.
it's where, having resentment towards him and for doing them things, and he was a cop and a fireman and a paramedic, and he was real respected.
Right.
So, but I didn't respect him, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
what happens behind closed doors, a lot of people don't know about.
Sure.
And so, life was good still, even though all that stuff was going on until I took that first drink.
Uh-huh.
And, my family, both sides of the family are, my grandpas were alcoholics.
Okay.
Most of my uncles and aunts were addicts and
Okay.
alcoholics.
So this runs in your family.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's, I never really put much thought into it back then, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, after, going up there and drinking them Little Kings, that's the first beer I ever drank was a Little King. And, once I just wanted more of it.
Okay.
So that's the addict brain that took over,
Right.
even at 10 years old, saying, you need more.
So you started experimenting and got your addict mentality at the age of 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, it was, smoking pot and drinking and cigarettes there for a while. And then, the town I grew up in, Ladoga,
Okay.
that's where I grew up until I was about 15 years old. It was the same, just a little country town, and but it was, I idolized all the older kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, back then they all hung out at the park, and Ladoga back then became a big cocaine town.
Oh, all right.
And so, then it led to cocaine, and
Hmm.
of course the drinking was continuous, and then see, I moved from Ladoga when I was 15 years old, and then I moved to Roachdale, which is about 4 miles south. So
All right.
it really wasn't much of a change, but it was, because Ladoga and Roachdale were like two different worlds.
Hmm.
And actually, being from Ladoga and then people from Roachdale, sometimes it was almost like a gang. You're from Ladoga, you didn't get along with people from
Oh
Roachdale.
yeah, town rivalries. And,
Right. And but it was, I had a lot of family. That's where my family was from, was
Mhm.
Roachdale, Putnam County area.
Okay.
So it was, moving over there wasn't that bad, because I had cousins and a lot of good friends there. And I got over there, and of course the drinking really took off. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's about that time I was 16 years old, so I was doing what I wanted.
Right.
Wasn't going to school. Um, and about that time I got into, or actually started selling cocaine a lot. And then I started doing methamphetamines.
All right.
So back then it was, you had to smoke it out of a light bulb and stuff. And
Yeah.
but that's one thing, started eating a lot of acid and eating mushrooms, and really, back then it was all fun and games.
Sure. So at 16, your drug use and alcohol abuse really took off.
Oh yeah, it
Okay.
was
Then you ran a lot of different avenues. You said acid, cocaine. You're still smoking grass. You're drinking
everything, man.
everything, and then
Eat,
methamphetamine hit the scene.
Eating Xanax
Hmm.
and, back then Darvocets and, you're talking, I don't even know if they make Darvocets anymore, but, just all kinds of pills and Lortabs and just whatever we could get our hands on. I mean, that was just what we did.
So at 16, you're really involved in the entire
Oh
drug
yeah,
scene, party scene. Okay.
I got my license, and when my mom and dad got divorced, my dad became a bad alcoholic.
Okay.
And like I said, he was mean. And the good thing about him now, he's not mean like he was back then, but he still has a lot of anger in him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Even to this day. But I moved in with him because I didn't want to move in with my mom, being with another man, and
Okay.
all that. And my dad worked nights, so I was off to the races.
Sure.
I didn't
No
have no.
supervision.
I was pretty much doing what I wanted anyway. Instead of sneaking out of the house like I did, all through them years when I, 10 and on. Once I started partying, man, it was over.
Yeah.
The good Jeremy was left at 10,
Okay.
and then it's just been up until now. It's just, I think, well, it's a couple of years ago, but we'll get into that a little more. But,
All right.
I stayed with Dad, and we'd sit out all night at the hours drinking and smoking pot or smoking meth or eating acid. And it was like that all the way. I didn't finish high school. So, at the age of 16, I got my girlfriend pregnant.
Okay.
And he was born when I was 17. So I decided to drop out of school and, try to find work and do all that stuff. It never really worked out. You know what I mean? I didn't. I worked,
You're sure.
but I was still doing all the bad things. And
All right. And you're about to become a father.
yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't being responsible.
Okay.
Most people, they, when they're kids and stuff, they experiment with the drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. And then when they get through school, they quit doing that thing, because their, life is coming. They become parents and they
Right.
do respond. But I'm not.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, that's why we're addicts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why we're powerless over drugs and alcohol, because that first drink or that first drug or whatever it is, I mean, it takes over.
It does.
And that leads to the unmanageability of our lives. So, today I got the power to not do that.
Right.
So the only power I got is to not take the first drink or do the first drug.
Okay.
So, then, I grew up thinking that being abusive towards women was normal.
All right.
So, drinking didn't, I had a lot of rage and anger and inside of me for some of the things that had happened to me when I was a kid. And
Okay.
and I, like I said, I thought, being abusive was normal.
Mm-hmm.
So my relationships with women wasn't very good
Okay.
back then, and you know, I just used women mainly for sexual gratification on
All
that
right.
on that end. So, and that all was part of my addiction. You know, Jesus didn't, my God didn't want Jeremy to be like that.
Sure.
And so anyway, you know, I had Blake, he's my oldest son, and you know, I don't know if we're supposed to say names or whatever, but you know, it's part of my story. So,
First names are fine.
yeah, okay. And he's my oldest son, and you know, it was probably, you know, it was probably one of the greatest moments of my life is becoming a father. You know, what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I truly wanted to be a dad, to be a father,
Right.
and a
Right.
good one, but I wasn't, and of course I can't change that now. So that bothered me for a long, long time, and because he suffers some of the same issues I do.
Okay.
Um, Not so much as being an angry man, but you know, he's 25, 26 years old now, so you know, but he's doing his own life, and he's the only one that can change all that. But anyway, you know, he was born, and that was the time when we were, I guess you could say, we were all in our hippie stage, and
Okay. Yeah, I
and
remember mine. Yeah.
yeah, that's when, you know, we were always it was a lot of Xanax and
Mm-hmm.
drinking and cocaine a lot at that point in time, and then and pot, of course. I mean, pot was always a part of it, you know, and um, I would say that went that way probably until I was 20,
Okay.
21, you know, somewhere around that age. But once I turned 21, I mean, even at 17, 18 years old, we was going in bars and drinking, and
Right.
you know, they'd usually let us come in and have a beer or two, and then
Get out. Yeah.
you know, get out, you know. And I had a couple buddies that I really ran around with, I've known all my life, you know, um, and that and to this day, one of them, maybe a couple of them that are, when I say buddies, I mean they're like brothers, and you know, we've known each other since we were born,
Mm-hmm.
and they're alcoholics,
Okay.
and they're still alcoholics, and I love them, but you know, that's part of the reason why I just decided that, you know, back where I'm from is not my home no more, because you know, for me to go back there, everybody else would have to change,
Yeah.
and I just can't expect that. So, you know,
Right. So at this point in your story, you haven't finished high school. You're at the peak of your addiction, and you're about to become a new father.
that wasn't even the peak of my addiction. That was
Oh.
just the start.
Oh, the start of your. Okay.
Yeah. You know, Blake was born, and then you know, at the same time, about that same time, I'd had another child. I didn't know he was mine until he was 18.
I
so,
see. Okay.
you know, like I said, you know, I used women for sexual gratification. I treated
Okay.
them like crap.
Okay.
I was abusive. You know, and you know, I'm friends with my exes now, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they hold a lot of resentment towards me, and I understand that.
Right.
You know, some of them have forgiven me for the things I've done, so some of them are still working on that,
Of course.
and I can understand that too.
Of
So
course.
anyway, you know, me and her split up, and her for a little while was sober, or not sober, but single. I stayed single for a little while, and just, you know, wanted to keep using women, but I didn't want no girlfriend to be accusing me of cheating on them all the time, because it was going to happen.
So you
know?
didn't want a commitment. You didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to stay committed to alcohol. And
Right.
I wanted to stay committed to drugs. And you know, my best friend in high school, he was a big meth maker back then,
All right.
and he dropped out of school too. And but that time, you know, meth really took over my life. It was huge. And I had a couple of friends die from in that time period of, you know, being. I didn't die from any overdoses, but they died from. A couple of them died from running from the police and
I see.
being high. You know what I mean? And
Drug-related
yeah,
deaths,
yeah.
but not overdoses.
And a lot of friends. Anyway, my best friend, he's in prison now. He's doing 64 years. He killed a 4-year-old boy and, from being on meth psychosis. And
Uh-huh.
so that basically, at that point in time, that's what got me away.
Okay.
So I kind of moved away for a little bit, and my drinking didn't stop,
Right.
or smoking pot, or cocaine, or at that point in time, the acid. We were, we basically got out of that hippie stage and moved on. But a couple that changed a lot too, because I had another friend that died from a drunk driving crash. There's a guy that I used to run around with, and we did all the acid and stuff with. He got in trouble for drinking and driving. It killed one of my friends, and so it kind of took him out of the equation, So the acid and the mushrooms and all that stuff kind of slowed down the Xanax.
So how old are you at the point when this is starting to slow down? You're used to slowing down a little bit.
That was probably, you're talking a long time ago. And
right.
I've done a lot of bad things since then, but you're still probably talking 19, 20 years old.
Okay. So we're still in the time frame of...
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, you're talking, 10 to, we're talking 19 years of addiction already.
19 years of addiction, and you're already starting to lose people in your life to drug-related situations.
Yeah.
Have you been in trouble at this point with the law?
Absolutely.
Okay.
When I turned 18 years old, once I started doing drugs and stuff, it changed. It took me away from wanting to be academically smart and be in sports, because I love sports, and even to this day I still love sports. But like I said, I used to play baseball and basketball and football all through grade school, and once the drugs took over, I just had no more interest in it.
Okay.
I become interested in alcohol and drugs and girls,
You had different priorities.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they were priorities back then, So, 19, 20, I would say. I can't remember really exact dates when, but losing that, that was God saying, hey, there's got to be some changes here, what I mean? So, but I wasn't looking for that stuff back then, because I didn't believe in God. I can't really say I was an atheist, but I didn't believe in God.
Okay.
I didn't really believe in anything, so I wouldn't even say I was agnostic, because I didn't believe that there was anything.
Sure.
I just, back then I didn't believe I was even living in hell. You know what I mean? This was just life, and
this is how it is.
That's how it is.
Yep.
Blake and my oldest son, they moved away to Tennessee for a little while, and of course his mom ended up getting an addiction too, and she was a real good girl. And I hear all these people talk about how my boyfriend did this and that got me into drugs, and I always thought they were full of crap, but I see it. When me and her met, she was she didn't know anything about drugs. So,
okay.
I got her on acid, and she started eating Xanax real bad, and I changed her life. And so I definitely believe that people have an effect on people.
Sure.
So, that's why they say people, places, and things in the program. So, anyway, to get back to that, methamphetamines, that led me to start stealing and doing a lot of things I wouldn't do. And like I said, my best friend in high school, we ran around together all the time. We did everything together, but it was always drug-induced things,
Right.
Get high and go out and try to rob people, and that's how my whole life was. I mean, it just...
So with the drug use and the alcoholism and the stealing, what was the first thing you got arrested for?
First thing I got arrested for was I got criminal trespass, public intoxication. That was when I was 18 years old. Me and my girlfriend at the time got into it, which was Blake's mom. And, I was a drunk. So I was a raging, angry, mad. I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So, I busted out her windshield and got, of course, they called the police, which was, at the time I was mad about that, but, now I understand it. So, I went to jail for criminal trespass, I can't remember really all the charges, but public intoxication, they tried getting me for drinking and driving.
Okay, did that process with the court, did that stop you from using at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I went to jail, and then I got bonded out. My mom actually bonded out, which my mom was, even I love my mom to death, but she was the biggest
Enabler. Yeah, we all have those.
Yeah, and so, at that point, I got out of jail, got put on probation, and, it didn't, like I said, it didn't stop my drinking, it didn't stop none of that, so I got violated a few times.
All right.
Eventually, it was like they just said, would just cut me loose, because they got tired of just messing with it,
Right.
The way the courts work, I think, is if they ain't going to get no money out of you, why have you in there?
I see.
So, they wasn't going to get no money out because all my money was going towards alcohol and drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So, they didn't, I did some IOP.
All right.
I didn't complete it.
All
I didn't
right.
really want to be there. I thought they were all full of shit.
Okay.
Excuse my French.
You're all right. Roll with it.
Well, yeah, I'm trying not to.
Yeah, you're fine, Jeremy. Roll with it, man. You're good.
Yeah. So, but I really, sitting back now and looking back at all them things, I really wish that I don't regret the past, but I don't shut the door on it either. It says that,
Okay.
in the program.
Sure.
So, but I wish I would have changed, because it could have been a better life.
Okay.
But life doesn't. I could start now and doing that, So anyway, we'll go on, a little bit more onto the story. So once I turned 21, it was really off the races then because I could, I was legal age to go into bars and
Right.
And that's where I was at every night.
Okay.
Every night in the bar, and there's been a lot of bar fights, and so that started off on the bad road. I met another one of my son's moms. And she was an alcoholic too at that point. She was underage, so she carried around a fake ID. So, and we had a lot of fun, man. We really did have a lot of fun. But she was, I don't really want to say a flirt, but she attracted attention. You know what I mean?
Sure.
She was, she liked to have fun and attracted a lot of guys. And I was a jealous type. So that created bad things for me and her. For the first few years of our relationship, we didn't have a kid, so it was just us and drinking, and that's what we did every night. And we'd go in these bars and get drunk, and then some guy would do something, and I'd end up fighting him, get mad at her, and maybe even smack her around a little bit, And
so you have a really kind of a dysfunctional relationship with this young lady, and doing the drugs, the alcohol, the lifestyle. Could we get into maybe at some point through all these abusive relationships and all the drug use and the run-ins with the law, were you able to keep a roof over your head?
No.
Okay.
I lived with my mom and my dad. I've always had to stay with somebody. I didn't. No drugs. I never had the money, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I do know.
I had the money. I was working. I actually I had a real good job, but I always lost them jobs, because I would get drunk and wouldn't show up for work or whatever. But at that point in time, I was staying with my dad, and then that's when we went to the bar one night, and it's about the same time me and my oldest son's mom split up, and I was actually cheating on her with this other girl, you know what I mean? So that's how our relationship started. But it was in between all that, my oldest son's mom started seeing this other guy, one of my friends, and so, that made me a little crazy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She wasn't supposed to do. I could do them things to her, but she couldn't do them things to me.
I see, the double standard.
So,
yeah.
I was going out to inflict harm on some people, and like I said, God's got a way of preventing things. So I crashed my truck, and that's when I first got my first drinking and driving charge. And but I went to jail, and at that point, my other son's mom, she got fed up with it too, you know what I mean? And she was getting fed up with it. And while I was in jail, and then in our relationship, Ethan was born, and with all the alcohol. Mainly then at that point, alcohol was my main drug. And so we'd get drunk and get in a fight. And like I said, I was abusive. I was real abusive to her.
Okay.
And that's really when my abuse took off. When I really started being abusive towards women. Not that I wasn't towards my older son's mom, because I very much was. But, and then after her, you're talking, let's see, he's 20. So at this point, I'm probably 22, 23 years old. And we split ways. And
Okay.
so I started, I became single again for a little while. And then that's when my two youngest moms come into my life. Then we started, from day one, we just kept our relationship. But, I was really, really, at that point in time, I was a real bad alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
The abuse and that was just normal for me.
Okay. Right.
She was 18, 19 maybe. She was younger, and so, which I actually thought was a good thing because I could go in the bar and she couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't see me in there flirting with women and, doing the things I was doing, but I thought was all right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a couple of years, at that point in time, we actually got a place together. We lived above the bar, so it was pretty convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Her grandma owned the bar at that time, and so basically I go down there and drink whenever I wanted for free. And
So did you get kicked out of this place?
have I ever been kicked out of it?
No, this place you're talking about, the place you're living now in your story, were you asked to go or
Well, we, her grandma went through some stuff. That place, they closed down, and we basically had to move.
Okay.
But, once again, we had to move back in with my mom. And actually, I moved in with a friend of mine. She moved back in with her parents. But, even a friend of mine I moved into with, he was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, back, there where I'm from, that was just normal.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody drinks, and, even the people that go to church and say they're, I don't want to say hypocrite, but, they say they're godly, and
Mm-hmm.
but they don't live by the word, and they were cheating on their wives, and I said that's normal there. It's just normal. Drink, and like I said, a lot of people don't know what to do, but that's just how life was. And
Sure.
even the kids in high school, when I was in high school, they thought I was different because I had long hair, and
Mm-hmm.
I wore Megadeth shirts, and
Okay.
I was just I don't hang around him. He does drugs, and so, which is crazy because, which I'll get into that story more down the line, but as my drug addiction evolved, and later in life, I ended up running into a bunch of friends from high school, but, they never really was alcoholics. They, but, that was when my heroin addiction started, so there's a lot in between there, so, when I met Misty, I don't want to say, well, she was a beautiful girl, but she wasn't, I don't want to say she was a bad person. She's not. I don't think anybody's a bad person. They just don't, they're lost. And
Mm-hmm.
she was controlling, but I pretty much made them that way, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So they had trust issues, and, because Jeremy wanted to do what Jeremy wanted to do when he wanted to do it.
Right.
I didn't give a shit about anybody. Even my friends, when Jeremy showed up at the party, they were like, oh God,
Mm-hmm.
But, just never knew what was going to happen. It was flip a light switch, and I'm mad wanting to fight everybody.
Right.
And that happened a lot.
So Jeremy, after this lifestyle and all the drug abuse and alcoholism and the fights and the women, at one point did you have to realize this has got to stop? I have to make a change. And then what did you do? What did you do after you hit that point?
Well, that point didn't come till about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So, me and Misty were together 16 years, and they were miserable years for both of us.
Sure.
And, we, at a certain point in our relationship, we wanted to get away.
Mm-hmm.
We just, once you get in that comfort zone with somebody, or, even with drugs, what I mean? You don't want to step out of it.
Sure.
So you always look for a way out, but you never get away from it, So, even with Misty, she, I could sit there and, I'm trying to say she's a bad person, but I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah.
But you know, she drank every once in a while, and she liked to smoke pot, but that was all she did, you know. And
So you now have to get away from this and seek some help for you. Like you can't really worry about Misty. You can't worry about your friends or your exes or your children.
what
What did you do to make the change?
to what?
Make the change to step away from your lifestyle into a better life
Well,
to
I mean,
to get clean.
to where I'm at now, you know, I come up to, you know, about 10 years ago, I got started in on opiates,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, that's what changed mine and Misty's relationship because a couple of years ago, she told me after we split up, she said, I started doing drugs with you to make me feel connected to you. And I thought, you're crazy, you know, I never made you feel, but that's what got me thinking, you know, that kind of hit home with me, you know what I mean? Maybe that's why all my other exes did these things because they cared and they loved me, but all I cared about was drugs.
Right.
And so they wanted to be a part of something I cared about. And so anyway, you know, up at that point, you know, I got into the opiates. I got on pain pills real bad, and when I say bad, I mean real bad. And I could never forget the first time I did one, you know, and I used to eat them, and then we was at work one day, and my stepdad was on Oxycontin, and he crushed one up, you know what I mean? I mean, I snorted Xanax and stuff back then, but cocaine and methamphetamine, but, you know, just crushing a pill, and even Xanax. But at that point in time where I was at in my life, I never thought about crushing a pill and snorting it.
Okay.
And I didn't like pills really at that point. So, you know, once I snorted it, it was like, I did a line of cocaine, you know, it made me feel normal. You know, by this point in time, you know, the partying and the fights and the car crashes and all the stuff I had done are starting to take a wear and tear on my body. So, and my legs were hurting all the time. But, you know, when I started that pain pill, that was all gone.
Okay.
And I felt normal, and I felt like I could do anything. I mean, it did the opposite effect. They say that I'm a downer, you know, but it kind of gave me energy. And so, man, it was I thought I loved alcohol, and once I started doing those, that was my true love.
So when you fell in love with opiates, did you realize I got to make a change and get into some kind of rehabilitation or recovery?
When I first got in opiates?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
You know, I started doing pain pills, and then I got into a doctor. He gave me pain pills, and then one of the requirements is that you got to pass drug screens. And so I went into the doctor and failed a drug screen, and of course he took my pain pills from me. And at that point in time, I was already addicted.
Okay.
So, you know, you're sitting there going through withdrawals, and they're awful. And so I started looking wherever I could find pain pills. And, you know, my mom had been I want to say a legal addict, but I don't believe in that. So she was an addict, and but she was legally prescribed to opiates, and so she helped me out for a long, long time. Like I said, was one of the biggest enablers, you know what I mean? And I know that she didn't want me to go down the road that I was going down.
Right. Right.
You know, it's going to happen one way or another. So went through this pain pills, and it got to, you know, at that point in time, I started my own fencing business. I got laid off from my job, and there's a guy out there at home that I work for anyway, and he retired, and I took over his fencing business. So I didn't take over his business. I basically bought it off of him, which is still didn't even complete that deal, but things were going good, but it just gave me more money to buy pills. And that's what I did with my money. And then I ended up, at that point in time, we were moved out in the country. I got a house off a friend of mine, another friend that I knew all my life. And we ended up leaving that place because of my opiate addiction. And it was then, you know, person I go buy pills off of, I called them up and said, hey, I'm going to come get some pills. And she was like, all right, come on. You know, so I went up to Indianapolis, and she brought out this spoiled pack, and I said, what the hell is this? You know, and she was like, well, this is heroin.
Okay.
And I was like, no way. You know what I mean? I'm not doing heroin. You know what I mean? I grew up in the time frame with, you know, when the Seattle alternative rock thing come in. So, I'd heard all them stories about, people like Wayne Staley from Alice in Chains and
Yeah.
them guys
A
all.
lot of deaths.
Yeah, and I was like, no way, that's just deadly. Why are you doing it? She tried to talk me into it, what I mean?
So I'm assuming you did the heroin, and that probably led.
I left. I actually left.
Okay.
I didn't even do it.
Okay.
But when I got back home, drove an hour back home,
Mm-hmm.
severely dope sick, and I thought, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I thought, man, I got to do something. So
Okay.
I drove back and got it. And of course, I told my girlfriend at the time, her name was Misty, that it was crushed up pain pills.
Mm-hmm.
It was already pre-crushed,
Sure.
But she knew I was full of shit. And so that was the start of the heroin. And then of course, I lost that house we were living in. I ended up moving into another house. We actually moved in with my mom for a little while. And then we moved into another house in New Maysville. Another one of my friends gave me another opportunity to, get on my feet and make a change. And I didn't see that that's what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, now heroin had the grip on me that nothing mattered.
Okay.
Nothing, even my children. So we moved in this place. We were there maybe 6 months, maybe, but, my kids were hungry. At this point in time, I turned to the needle,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm terrified of needles. So, and I met this girl up in Indianapolis, and I was snorting it. They were always injecting it, and they were always saying, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, I'm not sticking a needle in my arm. I'm terrified. So this girl was like, I'll do it for you. I was like, all right, so that hit, man. And to be honest, I'll never forget it. They call it chasing a dragon after that point, because you try to always get that feeling again.
Right.
But you never do.
Okay.
You'll never experience that again. And so at this time, that's when my heroin addiction,
All right.
that's when my life really started to nosedive. I'd go home, and it's every day, waking up and started pawning things off.
Right.
My kids would come home from school and their TVs would be gone.
Okay.
PlayStations, Xboxes, you name it.
So at this point, let's talk about when you hit your point where you realized you needed to make a change. What did you do to start your recovery?
Well, at the point I realized I needed to make a change was, my kids were hungry. I couldn't feed them, and but I could get high. And I took them over to my mom's, and my daughter had found some needles in her bed.
Okay.
So that's how careless we have become.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving needles in our kids' beds and stuff, and not knowing how they got there or whatever, But when you went in my bedroom, there would probably be 1,000 needles on the floor and stuff. So anyway, I didn't know this at the time, but we went to my mom's so my kids could eat, and my daughter said something to my mom, and she flipped out, So I told me if I didn't make a change, that she was going to take the kids, call CPS, and
that's the change. That's
so,
the time to make the change.
So, it got me really thinking, and it was like a couple of days later, me and Misty sat down, we talked, and we took the kids to my brother. And it was a month later, it was my first experience in a treatment center, and that was at the Harbor Light Center on 10th Avenue in Indianapolis.
All right.
And it was it's not something that I was comfortable with, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I didn't really want to make the change. So while I was in there, my girlfriend, Misty, at the time, she got arrested for possession of needles and paraphernalia. So she went to jail. And, of course, all that stuff. I didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked my mom into bringing my kids up when I was 15 days in. So I went through their detox program, and I felt great,
Yeah.
So you're talking 15, 16 days in, and I thought, well, I got this lick, good. And so my mom come up to bring my kids up for church, and I was in there. I thought I had this spiritual awakening, and I was never going to do drugs again, and life was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I got out, and things were great.
Yeah.
I wasn't great, but I thought they was great.
Sure.
I started working again, and then, May 21st, 22nd, around, I got out, and so it'd have been March 16th, I believe, was when I got out of there. Trying to think of the date, but anyway, May 21st, my mom got sick, and they took her to the hospital that day, and within an hour, my stepdad called and said that mom wasn't going to survive.
I see.
So we, like a couple of days before that, a week or so, she had a massive heart attack, and it did some real bad things to her body. So, May 31st, my girlfriend got out of jail. At this point, I'd already relapsed, and, because my mom, not only was she my enabler, she was my rock. She did everything for me, so, May 31st, she died, and at that point in time, I was relapsed, trying to hide it from everybody, and then I that's when I first got my first felony charge. My stepdad was in his head and wasn't really there, wasn't paying attention, so I decided I didn't have no way to get dope because I wasn't working, so I decided to steal his gun and pawn it and to get dope. And of course, he noticed it, and which was crazy because my stepdad always trusted me, and he did a lot for me too. So anyway, that led to me being not thrown out of his house, but I left,
Right.
So I ended up bouncing around here and there, and then ended up being up in Indianapolis for a little while on the streets. And I had my car, but all I focused on was dope.
Sure.
So anyway, my brother had my kids, and when I got arrested, and then at this point in time, me and Misty were talking about getting married, and you're talking September of 2019.
Okay.
So, I thought I'd go into prison for a while, but, a couple drinking and driving, PI, driving while suspended, a few other things, I thought I was going to go to prison, and, but while I was in jail, I could just tell, I thought while I was in jail, that I was going to make the best of it.
Okay.
Got in jail, life had sucked. I walked in there, I was 170 pounds. Life was bad. And so I thought I'd get in there and make the best of it. I went through withdrawals in a holding tank, and, all they gave me was Tylenol, and it didn't really help.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I can imagine.
I thought I'm never doing this again, so I'm going to make the best of it and use this as like a drug treatment and just get better. So the whole time I was in there, I didn't think about drugs. And on the day I got released, Misty, they got tired of my shit and found somebody else. So as soon as she said that, man, it was my first thought was heroin. But, of course, at this time, the drugs started evolving. It was heroin, fentanyl.
Okay.
So, I went to Indy and picked up some heroin, and I overdosed. And that was the first time that I can remember ever being Narcan. So then that, I was back out till, you're talking October, November, December, and January. And at this point, my brother still had my kid. And he wanted to know why I couldn't quit and why I wasn't going to treatment. And, I had my arms were covered in track marks, and life was unmanageable. I was staying with my son, stealing from him, stealing from whoever, robbing. Just did a lot of bad things. And but anyway, me and my brother talked about going to treatment, and the one you call a drug treatment center, one of the first things they ask you is about your insurance. And of course, you tell them when you don't have insurance, they pretty much don't want to talk to you no more.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate thing about recovery is getting into drug treatment is it costs money.
Sure.
So, my brother sat and thought about it, and he was friends with the guy who worked at the treatment center up here in Anderson, and so that's how I ended up going to Bridges of Hope, and that was the first time. And I thought I'd get in there and bullshit my way through. And like I said the other night, I went to this meeting, and George had talked about moving away from his. And I didn't know him. I didn't know nobody.
Right.
I was still in a drug treatment, and they used to take us out to meetings. And
So you heard Red speak.
So I sit there and listen to people talk, and George said that, and it clicked with me. Maybe I need to do something different.
Yeah.
And so I'd really registered. I mean, that's when I got out of there. I went to the House of Hope here in Anderson, which I don't, it was a good place.
Sure. Yeah, it is a good place.
But still at that point in time, I didn't want to get clean.
Okay.
So I relapsed again. I went back out, did some more bad things, and ended up hanging out with a buddy. Got back on methamphetamines at that time.
Okay.
And but I was only out maybe a month and a half, and then I went back into Bridges of Hope again.
Okay.
And once again, I thought things were good. And that first time, like I said, George talking really registered to me about a better life. Even though I didn't know how to do that. I didn't want to work the steps.
But you wanted what he had.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I wanted that. I just didn't know how to get it. I wasn't listening. I heard him say what he had to say.
But you didn't listen.
I wasn't listening.
I got you.
So, when they talk about getting a sponsor, they talk about working the steps, and I didn't want to have to listen to nobody else.
Right.
I've never done that all my life. So, there's been a couple more times I've been in and out of treatment since then, but this last time, I was out and I ended up in the hospital a couple times, and I lost one of my really, real good friends to fentanyl.
Okay.
And it really, a month before, I'd say a month and a half before I went to treatment this time, I'd reached out to Bridges of Hope again and wanted to get back in there. And they were ready for me, but I wasn't ready.
I see.
So, on the day, this past Thanksgiving, my brother, one of the things that he set for me to come see my kids was that you got to pass the drug test. You want to come here and see your kids, you got to pass the drug screen.
So he set a boundary up for you.
He set the boundary. Well, that also stopped me from going over there.
Oh, okay.
So, I knew when I'd go over, he was going to want me to pee in the cup.
Right.
There wasn't no way I was going to pass it because I could not quit heroin by myself.
Okay.
So, Thanksgiving come, I was supposed to go over and see my kids, and at this point in time, I'd already had it set up to go to Bridges, but he didn't know that I was using. I think he had the idea, but, and I called him, I said, hey, ain't no sense you coming to get me.
All right.
And he was like, why? And I told him, and of course he was disappointed, and it broke my kid's heart, and, but
Did you go back to Bridges after all that?
the next day.
Next day you went back to Bridges. Okay.
So the plan was for me to have a buddy of mine take me up there, and of course we were going to stop in Indy on the way and get high, and
Sure.
wanted to get high one more time.
Oh, yeah.
But my brother showed up in the morning and said, come on, you're going to treatment. I was like, well, I already got a ride. No, you're getting in the truck, and we're going to Bridges.
All right.
That's how it ended up, and which I was glad, because that's usually when, that one more time, and you don't survive it. So, I was already going through withdrawal, so I got to Bridges, and I struggled this time because I wanted to change, and it was in there that, I decided I was finally going to surrender to the program.
And you did it.
And I did.
You did it.
And, even though I'm only 83 days clean.
Only? That's a huge accomplishment, Jeremy. I mean,
you're right, it is huge.
It's huge.
But, working, I wanted to really sit down. I wanted to do things different, and, really working with the sponsor, come to the Bethel House. The plan wasn't even for me to come here. So, and this is where my first real experience was trying to turn my will over to the God of Care of Understanding,
Sure.
So, I wanted to be in Anderson, and I wanted God to make a way. I prayed for it, and He did.
He did make a way.
So, and when I prayed for that, and I normally don't pray for myself, but I prayed that, God would bring me to Anderson, and if He did that, I would do whatever it took.
And here you are. You're 80 plus days clean and sober.
At the Bethel House.
At the Bethel House.
Which has made a big difference, I had a concern, when I first heard about some people that were here. which was only my concern because I know he was going to push me to do better.
Sure.
But it's actually been a blessing.
Right.
You know, I come in here, the first week I had a rough time, you know, getting used to doing the small things, and I'm glad I come here because, you know, sitting down and doing the small things it's making the difference. You know, signing in, signing out, making your bed, things that you should do anyway.
Yeah.
But coming to, you know, getting in, working with my sponsor, and truly surrendering my will over to God, and working the steps, being in the program, it's made a big difference, you know.
Sure.
I sit around here and listen to all these people talk about, you know, their first year or two in recovery is hell. And I don't dispute that, you know, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
Everybody's different, I know, but, you know, hell's what I was living 85 days ago.
Yeah.
You know, once I crossed that threshold, there's days I don't want to get out of bed. There's days I don't want to do this. There's days I don't want to do that.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate.
And that's okay, you know what I mean? And I know, like I said, everybody's different, but it's tough, you know.
It is tough. But Jeremy, you know, the good news is, you know, yeah, you were pushed to excel in your recovery and to get some good habits, but you did it.
Yeah.
You're now approaching 90 days of clean and sober. You're about to graduate the program. You're employed. You're running your own business now.
Yeah.
I see you in the meetings. I see you in the rooms. You share, and you always have something very valid to say. You have something very pertinent to say. You work with your sponsor. We were talking just the other day about you had some tough situations, and you went to your sponsor and got some good guidance on that.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how proud I am.
Thanks, bud.
For you. You're welcome. You have come so far in such a short amount of time. I think you're finally back on track, and you're taking it day by day.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking it moment by moment. I've noticed a physical change in you. You look healthier. You look better. You seem to be calmer. And there's nowhere for you to go but up at this point.
That's where I'm going.
That's where you're going. And we're going to be with you every step of that way and make sure you get there and beyond. And I really want to thank you for coming into the studio and sharing your story.
It's fun, man. It's been fun, and I hope we get to do it again, you know.
Yeah. We'll do a follow-up.
Yeah.
We'll do a follow-up sometime on this.
Sure.
You know, beyond your 90 days. You know, Jeremy beyond 90 days.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm more all for it, man. It's been a good time, and, you know, just to give anybody any encouragement out there that's still struggling.
Right.
You know, give in to the program, man, and there's so much better of a life out there.
It is.
Than doing them things, and I know it's hard to get out of it, but it's so worth it, man.
It is.
And it's not like it used to be. People ain't making it back in recovery.
Right.
People are dying, man. You know, you're talking over 100,000 people a year just from addiction. So,
sure.
You know, I love everybody, and I wish everybody the best, and I appreciate everybody's support. You know, I'm blessed to be here at the Bethel House. I'm blessed to be here with all you guys, man, and I'm excited about life.
So. Well, we're proud of you, and we're excited for your recovery. We definitely are. And I just want to thank you again for your time, and anybody listening, hopefully Jeremy's story has touched you, and if you could relate, it's never too late to seek treatment. It's never too late to seek some help. And if you are struggling with addiction, alcoholism, please remember that you're absolutely not alone.